Hello, and welcome to Stories Across Borders. Here we discuss stories told across a range of different media, books, movies, games, you name it. The only rule is that we can only talk about things in terms of the writing. Anything like acting, animation, mechanics, etc., is off limits unless it relates directly to how the story is being told. I am Daniel Radford, author, mastermind, and also your host. And today I'm joined by John Conan once more as we continue our crime-themed cycle, this time with Leverage.
Hello, I am an actor with no romantic entanglement.
None whatsoever. Yes, so Leverage. Leverage is a crime thriller and drama TV series with a sort of often comedic bent created by John Rogers and Chris Downey back in like 2012, I think, is when it came out. The premise is basically that this guy, Nate Ford, is a former insurance investigator who was known for taking down particularly skilled and dangerous thieves until he left the business when his company just sort of let his son die to save money. And he is hired to help a team of criminals, all of whom he has chased at one point or another, screw over a company with ties to the one he used to work for. That team of criminals being Sophie Devereaux, who is a grifter, Alex Hardison, a hacker, Parker, who is just called Parker, who is a sort of cat burglar thief character, and Elliot Spencer, who is aptly referred to as the Hitter. Guess what he does? And that job goes poorly, to say the least. The crew are screwed over royally, and the guy who hired them tries to have them killed because, as it turns out, they're not stealing something back like they thought. They were just stealing something, and they were displeased of being used and then nearly exploded.
But this galvanizes them and makes them a very, makes it a very big mistake that the guy
Yeah.
turned on them because before they still got the job done, even while they were at each other's throats every single second. Our boss man, Nate, was not telling them what to do. And then suddenly they all actually had something to work together towards on the same side.
Yeah, not his best move at all. Uniting a bunch of very, very skilled individuals like that.
Yeah, they're a heist dream team. What can I say?
So they then turn back around and stab this guy in the back effectively. Well, not really. It's not really stab in the back after someone's tried to kill you, I suppose. They basically turn around and go after him. And they get him bankrupted and arrested, which is basically what they do.
With a plan so nicely layered that in the process of being sure he's figured out their plan and outsmarted them, he fucks himself over and smarting in outsmarting what he thought was their plan.
Yeah. Actually plays directly into it. It's so smoothly done.
They're really good about that. I really like the plans in this.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. But yeah, after that, they all sort of end up just coming back together and they form this like dream team of con artists.
That was actually one of my favorite moments in the show because I was so not ready for him to just be trying to walk away while suddenly they're all swarming him like excited puppies.
They all just flock
Like
back to one after the other. It's really good.
like they were sniping at each other so much the whole time and still grumbling, and Elliot still almost said nothing the whole episode except one job, then we can go our separate ways forever, which is funny because that's not the vibe he gives off for the rest of the show at all. But that
He's
first
actually very
episode
loyal, yeah.
that first episode, that's like all he has to say. And but then the second the job is over and Nate is walking away, even though none of them even have to do this anymore because they have plenty of money. Like Alec just got done saying earlier, like, oh, this is retirement money. We never have to do this again.
This is buy an island money.
suddenly one at a time, they're all behind him saying variations of like, oh man, so actually that was like really fun, or I just think we work really good together and it would feel like a shame to waste this opportunity, like one after the other.
Yes.
Just let's do it.
It's so
Can
good.
we do it again? Let's do it again.
Please, Dad. But yeah, so they get together, they form this team of con artists, and their MO is basically they seek out the sort of corrupt businesses, politicians, those people that the law normally can't or won't touch, and they run cons on them that will then leave them, much like their first quotation marks victim, bankrupt and or in jail, whilst the victims of that individual then inherit their wealth is the general MO.
Yeah, they're like a modern day Robin Hood heist squad.
Yeah, very, very much modern day Robin Hood with like a splash of Mission Impossible.
We do love us some Mission Impossible.
Because yeah, just because of the elaborate heists and things they pull off, the tech that Hardison brings, it's got that kind of vibe at times.
It really does, and oh man, I there are so many distinct sound effects in this, but also a lot of the musical
Very
cues.
distinctive sound, one could say.
This show is from 2008, but I would like to say that a lot of the musical cues and stuff are from like either the much earlier 2000s or a lot of those were like, I swear I was listening to this in the 90s when I was a kid.
I mean, I feel like a lot of that stuff is done very intentionally, right, to evoke those vibes of like classic heist films and things like that.
I think it is, and I love it because it's both fitting and pleasant, but also almost feels like jarring with the mostly like very down to earth and believable tones in the show. The show is very good at, without giving you tonal whiplash, having little moments of just pure clown shoes nonsense sprinkled in with the down to earth realism and like believability. And wow, all these people are really smart.
Yeah, they mostly I feel like they do it by like they mostly operate a sort of middle ground, right? Where the dialogue is very sharp and witty, but they're not like diving all in on being comedic, and that then leaves them a lot of leeway to put the clown shoes on when it's time to do something genuinely just really funny comedic slapstick, but also leaves them open to completely play straight a lot of the much more serious dramatic elements of the show.
Yeah, it's good because I think they also lean into it without going all the way to clown shoes territory to help us have some extra fun because they want you they want you to feel vindicated, but they also want you to laugh at these villains when they're done destroying their lives and their empires.
Yeah, because they all think they're untouchable.
Yeah. Like, it's not enough to see them sad. You need to see them despair so you can just go, ah,
Oh
rich
yeah,
asshole.
they're also, or some of them are comically evil. So,
Oh man, the the
and yet they
judge,
feel believable.
the judge. Ah, that's right. I'm the hero. I've saved everybody. Now, nobody gets out of this bank until someone tells me where my goddamn money is. And I'll wave this gun around until someone does it. What do you mean I'm not the hero?
What do you mean I'm getting framed for being a meth addict who's here because I need the money for a fix?
That was the only way I could think of right away. The second he had the gun and he said nobody gets to leave, I'm like, buddy, now you're literally the one holding the bank hostage.
Oh man.
Like, you can't just even if they hadn't done that recording, like what, you're gonna just try to say you're the good guy after you started waving your gun around saying any one of you could be in on this. You can't leave.
Yeah, it looks paranoid.
Looks paranoid. Only one with a gun. Other people are shot. Nobody is allowed to leave, including the bank employees.
So good. And that episode also, as a side note, introduces another long-running gag, which is those two FBI guys.
Yeah, you're right. They showed up in Wait, I think they showed up in both the episodes I watched after that, or there are two of the episodes I watched after that. There was more than two.
They show up again in the mob wedding, yeah. And they will continue showing up throughout the rest of the show and continue specifically believing that Hardison and Parker are more senior FBI agents.
Yeah, you know what? Why shouldn't they? They always get at least a small win every time one of their heists gets pulled off. They always throw a little bone their way of, wow, look what a good job you guys did. You're so good at this. And they're like, yeah, we are. We are good at this.
Yeah, they toe the line, right? They're not comically inept, the FBI guys, but they're clearly below the benchmark for skill level that is required to be in the arena that the Leverage crew are playing in.
Must be why they're just working at a listening post being tech guys.
Yeah, basically. To get a little bit more then into the actual technicalities of it, now that we've just gushed about how much we love this show for solid 10, 12 minutes, which is not a bad thing. Maybe it'll encourage you to go and watch it. It might be worth going back over a little bit of the structure, where this fits into the spectrum of things, because some of it is very relevant to things we talked about, especially back in episode 1 of the cycle. Specifically, one of the things we talked about was the sort of different categories of criminal you get in fiction. And obviously, these guys are very much in the charming rogues category.
Yeah, they are. They are full on Robin Hood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I said, Robin Hood, Dash of Mission Impossible, all of the snark. And that's basically the Leverage crew.
It's great. You got everybody loves crime. Everybody loves seeing bad things happen to rich people, even other rich people. And everybody loves getting to feel good while they watch the people they don't like suffer.
Well, that's exactly it, right? It's one of the things that heist films or movies or books or whatever, heist stories, and this is effectively a series of heist stories.
Yeah, every episode's just a short heist movie. That's
Yeah.
it. They're an hour long.
But yeah, everything the I wouldn't call it a struggle necessarily, but one of the first hurdles that you have to overcome when writing a heist where you're, where you're doing the traditional thing of it's a group of like actual thieves, is you have to make it possible to root for the thieves. And
Yeah.
Leverage does a fantastic job of making you root for the thieves because, for one thing, they're not only just screwing over the obscenely wealthy, but they are also screwing over the obscenely wealthy who are also genuinely and deeply corrupt and dangerous. Their actions are getting people hurt, killed, or destroying their lives, and are then giving back to those people's victims, very Robin Hood style. So that in and of itself makes it immediately very easy to root for them, especially because in our first episode especially, we are introduced to all this through the lens of Nate, who has very, very good reason to be going after the company that's aligned with his former employers after they let his son die.
They do a good job of it, and I think it's, obviously you can have way less moral and way like more intense criminals than this as main characters in a story. It's not at all impossible. These guys are pretty far on the good guy spectrum, but it's still a very important balance to keep in mind as a writer, because no matter what, the two-toned question, or one of the two-toned questions you have to answer when doing a crime thing is, how do I make it completely undeniable undeniable and unambiguous that these guys are criminals, but not just make the audience feel bad and hate them in the process. Not necessarily likable. You can almost never get away with going so far in the, wow, these main characters are a piece of garbage direction, because a lot of people will stop having fun once it passes a certain point.
Yeah, the Leverage writers very much play with the idea of anti-heroes, but not like the stereotypical edgy anti-hero. They're very much playing with the idea of contrasting legality with morality. Because
Yeah,
what these guys are doing is very explicitly crime. It is not legal. All of them except Nate were already very well established criminals. Elliot has definitely killed people, quite a lot of
and
them.
at least some of those kills have been gruesome because he does not touch guns.
He does not. He hates guns and he does not like talking about his history at all. He's that character. He's the closest to a traditionally edgy anti-hero in the group.
When they first went into that a little bit, I was like, "Oh, I get it. He's a goody two shoes. He doesn't kill people." And then, like, I just a short while later, I was kind of like, he said a couple things that made me go, "Oh no, he just doesn't use guns. He does not kill people."
It's confirmed at some point that he was basically Black Ops for a while and then he was like a hitman for a while. And at some point he just went, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is so messed up. And that's about when he stopped with the guns, I think, and shifted to being more of a thief.
I'm looking forward to seeing more of his backstory because so far I've gone through a little bit. I mean, the two-horse job was
His
very
rundown was
heavily into
interesting.
his backstory. So that was cool. Because before that, the only thing I got was the one moment in the show that actually just slapped me and made me laugh out loud when there's this, it's just like, oh, the butcher is here. And he's like, it's like, oh, the butcher for we didn't order any meat. He goes, no, the butcher of Kiev. And Elliot just stares dramatically into the camera for a second, and we cut into like the cheapest, shittiest background of a burning building I've ever seen on a real TV show, and him wrestling with a guy that looks half like he's trying to rip off Danny Trejo as Machete, but with a big, way too shiny, way too like silver plated meat cleaver while they wrestle, and I just died. I wasn't ready. I wasn't. That one was full on clown shoes, and it caught me so off guard that I slipped on the toes of those clown shoes.
Yeah, despite being one of the most like overtly serious characters of the show, he actually gets a lot of the funniest moments, and I think it's because he plays everything so straight. Like the very distinctive sound bit, the fact he's a very good cook and is very particular about cooking comes up a lot.
Yeah, that was funny to see. Just being like, "Oh, what? You a chef now?" And he basically has this like intense little thing of like, a knife is a knife. It's a tool. If you're good with it, then you can do anything you need to do with it, whether that's slicing up sushi or slicing off people's fingers. That's not verbatim at all, but that's the vibe it gives.
He basically gives a demonstration: if you hold it this way, you're a chef. You hold it this way, you're an assassin.
Yeah, no, literally, like this way prepares food, this way kills people. And like, oh, I see.
Yeah, there's also in a later season, like there's a whole episode where they're doing a con on this corrupt music industry guy. And that entire episode is basically like Elliot could just be a country music singer if he wanted to. Which checks out because the guy who plays him has released I think multiple country albums.
That does make sense. He looks like one too.
Yeah.
He looks like he should be leaning his foot up on his box, strumming a guitar and a cowboy hat and bearing his soul.
But that is the thing that I mean, just going into Elliot's made it very clear, hasn't it? Like that's the other element to what they've done by making us root for the criminals. The first part is by making the people they're up against much more evil, so it becomes much easier to root for these guys because they feel like the good guy underdogs, even though they're criminals. Because what they're doing is moral, even if it's not legal. However, they have also just made the characters very, not just likable, but compelling in general, although they are all very likable. Except maybe Nate, I guess. But even then, he's compelling.
Yeah, they really quickly settle into a dynamic. And what I like is even though people use the word family at them in one point or another, they don't quite feel like a family, but I mean that in a good way. because they don't just settle into being like, aha, brothers and sisters and dad and whatever. It feels more like you get a lot of distinct vibes that they hang out a lot whenever they're not on a job and that they've quickly become like actual friends because they don't hesitate to talk about like each other's feelings or things they did together that haven't didn't even happen on screen for us to see, just to make it clear that like they spend time with each other, they know each other now, like they get along. They're not just personalities playing off of each other anymore.
There is a very sort of funny couple of scenes in a sort of later episode, which in general is conceptually quite funny because in that episode, Parker, or rather an alias of hers, gets called for jury duty,
Oh no, this is what you get for having multiple identities.
which is in itself very conceptually quite funny. But there's a scene in that where, or a couple scenes where they've, Hardson's got this big like surveillance high tech setup, right? And we've got them using this massive like set of screens they use for high tech surveillance and infiltration and all this, and they just have the football on, and Nate, Elliot, and Hardison are trying to watch this game, and quite irate when Parker shows up with a conspiracy they need to get involved in.
Just like, oh, come on.
But yeah, it's in the banter and stuff as well. Like they have really good banter, especially Ellie and Hardison in particular have really good banter because they are so very different as people.
And not just the body language too. Like one of the things that made it sink in was for me was when I noticed like multiple times the in the third and fourth episode there were moments where like something would happen and one of them, not just Sophie and Nate because we all know they got their thing going on, but like two members of the group would be talking and one would put a hand on the other's shoulder or pat him on the back or just lots of little body language things of comfort and familiarity, and the other person never like stiffened up or whipped their head around like, ugh, don't touch me or anything like that. And
Yeah,
that was
actually,
nice too.
they have an opposite moment to that at a later point, actually, where someone makes physical contact. I mean, no need to go. It's not super spoilery, but Nate makes physical contact with Parker at one point, and she's like, "That is the first time he's ever made physical contact with any of us." She points this out, and it's the first like big sign that Nate is one of them now.
I kind of like it. Yeah, I also kind of like the vibe that I say there's not always that much of a family dynamic, but Parker does almost give off some Nate is dad energy every now and then, where like she's always paying attention to what's going on with him and seems to be concerned when everyone else is like the job or why are we doing this? Why are they acting like she's bringing stuff up like he's been getting creepier and edgier lately, or like, is he okay? Oh, why did that just happen?
Spoilers, no.
And you almost get the feeling, and I also get the feeling from how much more quickly she jumped to that than everyone else, that like she actually just kind of liked him right away and already kind of liked him and wanted to be friendly with him before they all got together. She just doesn't explicitly show it a lot because Parker's a little bit crazy.
She's a lot crazy. It does make sense, given her history, that she would latch on to a sort of semi-father figure with Nate, though.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've gotten to like that episode yet, but
I haven't, but she's definitely got stuff going on. You have to have stuff going on to be Parker's specific brand of crazy because she's not murder crazy. She's not even like I have no friends crazy. She's skewed perception of what's normal and what's not, and I value only the exact specific things I value and nothing else, and I can't even understand why anybody else is different sometimes. Crazy. And also, I already said this when we messaged last night, but I will say it for the podcast. I call Parker crime sexual because wow, sometimes she looks way too excited when talking about crime.
Parker is legitimately like she comes off in the like first couple episodes as you're the team's token crazy person, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At first, she's like really token crazy. She's like, she never stops smiling. She does all the weird stuff. She never bats an eye at anything that happens or hesitates to like have a joke when everyone else is uncomfortable. But then it very quickly becomes a much more believable, realistic angle of, oh, you're not altogether there, and it's not because you're just crazy. Something's wrong.
Yeah, they start sprinkling in little hints of that, and they do get to some of it quite early on. Like she was brought up without, she was an orphan. She grew up in foster care for a lot of it, and was cycled around a lot of really shitty people. And later on, in a later season, you learn the closest thing to a father figure she actually really had for a long time was a master thief who was not particularly kind. He wasn't like unkind either, but he very much the only language they communicated in was the language of thievery.
That really makes sense why she attached to Nate the way she did.
Yeah, so she's got it rough, and like you see as well, like in the episode I just mentioned as well, where she has the jury duty thing. A lot of that is about exploring the fact that she really struggles to make human connections, and you actually get the vibe a little bit that that bothers her after a while that she has this problem with like forming genuine connections with people.
Especially now that she has formed at least a semblance of those connections with the rest of the crew.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
I didn't realize until the one guy was waiting for the state police officer was not the state police officer, that one guy. I keep forgetting his name that was waiting for Nate at the base and it like
Sterling?
yeah, the little title card thing popped up and it was like Leverage headquarters. I went, "Oh, they're actually calling the group Leverage." I Has anybody said that already? I didn't. Oh, hmm.
I think they do. There's a joke that like the painting Hardison does of like an ancestor quotation marks for Nate is like John Leverage the Third or something like that.
I like that. That's pretty funny. Speaking of artisan, that was actually one of the things I forgot to bring up when I brought up how comfortable they got with each other. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if there was a romantic thing between Hardison and Parker later. But I really enjoyed when she was sitting there being kind of insecure and said a little bit about like being in the bridesmaid's dress and everything. And she's like, you don't get many opportunities to wear one of these. It's a big deal. And he was weirded out for a second, but like really quickly recovered and was basically just like, well, you look beautiful in it. And she was like, really? And then they just move on from there. They don't suddenly start being all like, either uncomfortable around each other or like a lovey-dovey and will they won't they romantic-y or any of that. Just she has a vulnerable moment and he says something really nice and she's touched.
And they get a few really nice little moments like that in season one. But yeah, that's the thing. Like it would be it's you get especially the first episode you get the vibe that these characters are quite one note shallow. They just are the archetypes, you know. Hardison's the geeky hacker, Parker's the token crazy, Sophie has her thing with being a failed actress, but you know, she can only act when she's committing a crime, and then she's the best actress in the world kind of deal. Nate's got his whole, you know, tragic anti-hero thing going on, and Elliot's the dark bruiser kind of character. And very quickly they start sprinkling in not only these really genuine, funny, or well, genuinely funny or heartwarming interactions between them that make you like them as a group and as individuals. But they start sprinkling in these hints at their histories and how they ended up where they are and why they became criminals and all this stuff. And also hints to why, despite being criminals, they so quickly basically turned illegal white hat for Nate. They are all much more layered characters than just the archetypes they initially appear. They have complicated histories and motivations. You know, Nate's got his history with I think it's IYS. He's got his wife and dead son. He's got his alcoholism issues going on. Elliot's got this dark, violent past that he's trying to move away from. We start learning a little bit, although it's more of a season 2 thing. We start seeing even 3. Even we start seeing that Sophie's got some like real identity issues because she's been so many different people in her scams and things. Parker, just in general.
Man, you know the alcoholism is bad when the second the cop who pulled him over drives away after slamming his head into the oh my god, I almost called it the steering wheel. Nate immediately pulls the flask back out for another sip, being like, "Oh, that was stressful. I need to take the edge off."
Yeah, he's got a very real problem. There's an episode where a con basically forces him into play a part in rehab, and it is so rough on him. And the entire episode, Sophie, who is also in there playing one of the therapists for their con, is constantly trying to like boot him towards sobriety. It's simultaneously has some very funny moments into like group therapy meetings where she's trying to therapy him in her role, and he's constantly trying to steer her back towards working on the mark. But it's also heartbreaking.
They kind of find multiple ways to talk to each other through their work while they're playing their roles. Like, I can't forget at the wedding when
the wedding speech.
He pissed her off and was doing all this shit. And then when he's giving the speech as the officiator of the wedding, he just gives his whole little speech that is basically just directly about them while staring at her in the crowd the entire time. And she smiles, but I'm also like, Nate, you're supposed to be putting on a performance.
Which he then realizes it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But they would have to deal with any of that.
No, there's bigger fish to fry, as there always is with the mafia.
Oh man, you have it. The same episode with the rehab. The mark they're on is involved with a Japan there might be a Korean, a Mexican, and a Chilean crime syndicates. And he's pissed them all off. It's great. It's a really good episode, even if seeing Nate legitimately going through withdrawal and still not realizing that he should actually be in rehab is just painful.
I forgot to comment when you said earlier, but about the OneNote thing earlier on. It's fitting that it shows the first episode as episode 0, not episode 1. Because thinking about it, I think it kind of is in episode 0. Not just because it's how the group gets together and everything in their first little bit of work together, which is how the session 0 of a D&D would go, but it's also it gives very strong pilot energy. It has a lot of little things that you can always feel in like the pilot of anything, where not only is stuff being established, but also in that very first bit, the characters are literally not 100% fully themselves yet.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, you see it often. I don't think it's quite as extreme, but you do, especially with older stuff, but even to extent more modern stuff. There's often a delay between a fairly sizable delay between the pilot going up and the proper release of the show, and it's not, or the pilot being made, I should say. And there's often a lot more fleshing out of the characters done in the meantime, because now they have the space to do it and things like that. So I do get that, and it's still an entertaining watch, and it still establishes a lot of important stuff. But I do think the pilot, the first episode, is by far the weakest, which says a lot because it's still very entertaining, but it's definitely weaker than everything that comes after.
I liked it a lot. The characters just were kind of one note at first. I almost shouldn't say that, because the characters themselves weren't one note, but we were only getting to see one note of the characters that we would later see so much more of.
Yeah. I will say, like, I think Hardison is a lot more well-adjusted and has, like, less baggage and drama going on than a lot of the other characters do. It's been a while since I watched the whole series, to be fair. I can't think off the top of my head of any, like, really major, like, personal history stuff going on that he has compared to other characters. But even he is still a well-fleshed out character, he's got his own life outside of just being the hacker.
Yeah, and it makes sense that he would be more well adjusted because even when you're doing high end stuff like he is, uh, tech crime is still almost about as white collar as it gets.
Oh,
Everything
yeah.
he was doing before all this was surely much less intense and probably usually much less dangerous or morally ambiguous than what the rest of them were doing.
So you just reminded me of a scene where they're in the back of a van and Parker tells him off for pirating something.
Oh man. I I love the little text things he says here and there where someone either tries to say something or is confused about something and he basically just schools them and he just kind of looks at them like, "Ah, you're so behind. Get with the times."
Oh yeah, I mean Elliot in particular has no understanding of technology.
Elliot is such a Elliot is such a fizz nerd, and that's gonna sound silly, but there's a type of people where they're anti-technology in that special way that they're not actually literally anti-technology, but they are extremely passionate and energetic and do a million things, but literally only all of the things that are quote unquote in the real world. The second you get into anything that's digital or involving like a display and not something they can touch and feel and do and put together or break apart with their hands, they're just like, why? I don't. What's the point of all this? I don't. Oh man, I just this isn't my world.
Yeah. I don't think like being the tech guy and stuff at the least and like the least on hands-on member of the crew. I do get the vibe that Hardison often feels kind of out of his depth and a little insecure. And to be fair, he is very often out thrown into situations that are very outside of his role as the tech guy. But that's one of the things that I really like about what they do with the show, because even though everyone on the team has their very specific role that they are supposed to fill, and they fill extremely well, when things start going to shit, and they often do,
It's a heist. Got to be one step away from disaster.
the group are often forced into roles that other members of the team are much better equipped for, which leads to very amusing banter between team members who are filling the wrong roles, but also very interesting scenarios where these very competent criminals they still feel like underdogs because they are challenged and out of their depth in these roles that aren't really their thing.
Yeah,
Like
they
the
pulled it off
clearest,
well. We get to see Parker having to deal with people on a personal level and do her little bits of acting, which Sophie kind of like really cutely coaches her on afterwards because she's like, "Oh no, you can do it. Don't worry, it's fine." Um,
yeah,
but
she's
like
very bad at it.
we get to see Hardison be hands-on. We only find out Elliot is kind of tech illiterate in a moment where he has to do some computer stuff while Hardison coaches him, which delightfully ends on them having to deal with the fact that what they're looking for is not anything properly digital, but cassette tapes.
Yeah. There's also a line kind of earlier where it's actually hilariously Elliot has to play an IT guy quite often
Because he
because
literally
he
looks like a Silicon Valley fucking. He looks like a
it's
Silicon
amazing.
Valley bro.
You put glasses on that man, and he goes from looking like he's on a ranch, he belongs on a ranch, to looking like he belongs in an office in an instant. It's wild. But more to the point, he's often needs to be on scene because of his skill set, whilst the actual tech guy who is feeding him information has to be doing his thing from, home base or in the van or whatever. And like Nate actually points that out at some point because Hardison's like, shouldn't I be playing the tech guy? And Nate turns around and goes, no, I need you to be the tech guy.
Yeah, exactly. Shouldn't I be playing the tech guy? No, I need you to sit here and be the tech guy. I like that one too.
And I mean, that's the thing. Like, this Elliot is like the prime example, I think, right, of having them fill roles that are not matched to their skill set. Because Elliot's skill set is punch things really good, and the threats that they are dealing with and the like arena they are operating in, there's not a lot of situations that can actually be resolved by him knocking a guy out. Like, there's often some guards or something he used to get into a token fist fight with because he's the hitter, but none of their problems can be solved by just chucking a guy out a window. That's not going to achieve their aims. So, despite the fact that his skill set is punch things, Elliot is constantly having to grift and play parts and pick pockets and do the things that the other members of the team are better suited to.
Yeah, and he's also always the one who does the construction work. If they need to put together a set real quick, Elliot's the one who runs in and puts on his hard hat.
Yeah. There's a lot of him like putting signs up and removing signs like as people are coming around corners, basically.
Literally running into an office and rapidly turning it into a fake, real looking office for them to do a fake meeting in. Like, I like that they also don't hesitate to call out when somebody's role isn't getting subverted or nobody else is doing a thing. Like, even though it could normally be cartoonish, just because of the way everyone else has been switching stuff up so much, I like when they're just like, okay, I need to get this. Parker, we're gonna need you to go in, and she's just crawling through, going, "Oh yeah, get on, go in the vent, Parker. God forbid anyone else should ever crawl through one of these vents. It's so hard to just go through a small space on your stomach. I'm the only one."
Which, of
While she's
course, the
crawling
comms
through
are
the
still
vent.
on.
Yeah, and exactly like I'm actually surprised she didn't just. I did not expect that to go the way it did. I assumed that after they said that, she was going to be like, "Oh, I know." I did not expect her to get that look on her face and then just keep crawling.
Yeah, no, it was. And then, like, when the guy just opens the vent, she's just there smiling at.
Yeah,
Man.
oh, would you look at that?
But I mean, you mentioned it already, but Parker is also like a fantastic example of this because she is so inept with people. But because of the games they're playing, she often has to play roles where she ends up having to talk to people, and she's so bad at it.
She's good with kids though.
Yeah, I mean the only words you need are hug and us.
Uh,
I mean, it does have like Hardison as well. Has to rappel down a building at one point and is not thrilled at all about that, whilst Parker's having the time of her life, or has gotten into like situations where he basically ends up in fistfights, and he's the tech guy. That's not really what he's there for. However, what I really do like is that you can tell that Elliot has been coaching him because Hardison gets much better at handling himself in those situations as the series goes on.
yeah, and it makes sense. Like, it would be really weird if they weren't coaching each other on anything or shoring up their weak points in this. It's always really weird when like a crew in a thing is just like, yes, each person has their role. Yeah, and they do it really well, right? Yes. What else do they do? What do you mean, what else?
Because that's the thing, like, usually that's how a heist crew in a book or a movie or a series or whatever is constructed. Everyone has their one thing, and that is all they do. And you're watching this, and you're like, that is a weakness. Because if one of you guys gets taken out or something, the entire operation is going to fall apart. That's one of the things I really like about the Leverage crew is that clearly that has been thought about both in and out of universe. Because the more they go on and the more they get put into these roles that is not their specialty, the more capable they find themselves in these roles.
Yeah, like they all put on the costumes. They all play their roles. They all press buttons from time to time. They almost all throw punches. Sophie, so far, I've only seen get punched by a lady's massive bag, which I thought she would do something about. I didn't expect her to just so brazenly get hit in the face by that mafia
And just go,
boss
ow.
wife bag and just go, ow, that hurt. I
Yeah, I
was like,
mean,
oh, you didn't. That wasn't a very fast swing, Sophie. You could have just
heavy
done
bag.
like, I don't know, anything at all.
I mean, yeah, Sophie is routinely like by far, I think, the least physically capable one in the crew, and that never really changes. But she can pick pockets, and obviously, since it's her skill set primarily, she is by far the best at playing roles and things like that.
And she is stylish as hell.
God, it is so good. I really like that is legitimately one of my favorite things about this is that they don't just have them constantly doing the same thing over and over. They are always forced at least a little bit into different roles they are not prepared to be in. Like there's an episode dealing with like a chemical fertilizer company that is trying to do some shady stuff, and everyone else except Hardison is on a plane. So he is the only person left in the US who can infiltrate the corporate building to get some stuff they need.
Oh man.
He goes about it in a very Hardison way, but he does it.
Oh yeah, I've got faith in him. He ordered all those pizzas during the hostage negotiation.
But that was very good. Yeah, Hardison, his best skill as like when he has to like play roles is that he can say complete bullshit so confidently.
It's
And like to be clear, I don't mean in the Sophie way where it's informed bullshit.
no, I think he's the best impromptu bullshitter. I think he might be the best improviser in general out of the group, actually. He does a lot of just like, oh, well, that didn't work, or oh shit, this happened and nobody else is around to help. Well, here's something I pulled out of my ass.
Yeah, like that episode might genuinely my one of maybe my favorite Hardison move he ever pulls is he is goes in well for one thing he actually enters the building as a janitor, but very quickly becomes a suit and he like goes into this guy's office and he's like, oh yeah, the meeting's in like 5 minutes, and he goes and starts hosting a meeting, spouting complete bullshit, like the most corporate jargon filled nonsense meeting you could possibly imagine. And you can tell everyone in that room is just nodding like they understand because they don't want to look like the stupid one. And then, like, part way in, he feigns illness, hands the meeting over to another guy, and leaves. So this guy is now just stuck in there trying to give a presentation about something he does not know anything about because the entire presentation is complete bullshit.
He's really good at that though. He does stuff like that multiple times of just yes, I am this person. I'm here for this and this and this. Thank you. You've done a great job. Have a nice day. I conveniently need to go right at this moment because I'm very busy and stoic and I can't tell you why. And then the second he leaves, whoever should have been the real whatever he just was shows up and is like, huh, how come everything seems to be sorted
Done.
already?
Yeah. He's a lawyer at one point.
Oh, I bet he'd be good at it.
That's the same one where Parker's on jury duty. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds fun. I'm looking forward to getting to that. This is definitely one of the ones I'm gonna keep watching after we're done.
The hardest method really is very much quantity over quality. He just hurls as much stuff at someone as they can that they become completely overwhelmed. And by the time it's like anything is settling in, he's left and the actual guys have shown up.
You know, come to think of it, that actually makes perfect sense with his main skill set because he can handle more information being thrown at him or out of him at once than most people can because that's all you're doing when you're doing crazy computer stuff is just there are so many things happening at once. You have to have a ton of different things memorized. You have to have the foundational rules and systems of a bunch of things so that you can put them together quickly and make them work. Like it makes sense that he would be able to just throw a million things out at someone at once in like a shotgun blast of info dumping because he already has to deal with that all the time. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people get overloaded by that and just then desperately cling on to the simplest thing they can understand, which leads them to just basically doing exactly what you want.
Yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing, right? Is that even when they are forced into these other roles, as they so often are, they always do that role in a way that's very them. I mean, Hardison is clearly the best one. Parker is mostly just incompetent at doing anything that involves people, but so she takes a very direct approach, and that just leaves people bewildered so they don't question anything. Like, she is a terrible air hostess, let me tell you that much.
Oh boy, I bet she is.
What else? Nate, he's always playing someone who has all the cards and is in control because that is the position he is used to filling in the team.
Yeah, he's always either the rich cocky mogul or the career gambler. Like,
Yeah, he always, even when he's in a grift playing a character, he has always puts himself in a role where he is in a position to maneuver and control things.
I think he just finds it fun because some of those character details he throws in on his things are like so unnecessary or not really all that helpful to the con he's running. I think he just has fun with the characters he makes up.
I mean, that's a bit like Sophie, right? She considers herself an actress more than anything. So she always goes in playing a playing a character, but in a very actressy kind of way where she's very much like, okay, I'm gonna get into this person's head. This is their motivations, their history, that sort of thing.
Yep. And she definitely does not hesitate to play on men being stupid in the uniquely man ways.
To be fair though, that's not at all dissimilar to Elliot, who is not afraid to turn the charm on and embrace the fact that he is a very muscly, confident man, and do the exact same thing to women.
Yeah. Yeah, no, not at all. He'll do whatever. He's got the build for it. He's got the hair for it. He's got the, not to be mean, but slightly genericness for it.
I think that's one of the things you'll really like when you do the sort of two-part finale. Without spoiling too much, there is a part in the sort of two-part finale for season one where they very noticeably, distinctly, and intentionally, by their own choice, choose to draw on the skill sets of other members of the team to solve a problem.
I like that.
Yeah, it's really good. And that's the best thing about it. Like, one of the best things is they feel like a cohesive team who work together, they hang out together, they have their banter, and they clearly learn from each other enough to be able to, shift around, draw on each other's skill sets and shift around roles. And that's just one of the things as well that isn't just engaging, helps them be likable and engaging as characters. It helps keep the heist format fresh. Because
Yeah, it's not the same people doing the same thing every single time.
yeah, I mean, like, you got to acknowledge, right? Whilst every every heist is a little bit different, they're playing a different con, they're dealing with different security or whatever, and whilst they're changing roles and all this, ultimately every episode is still a con or a heist. So you've got to have a very interesting, compelling cast to keep that engaging, and you have to change things up enough that the episodes don't feel samey. And it is very impressive that they very rarely feel samey. And some of that is because of the way they format it, right? Where they are quite clever about the way the heists are structured because they keep the audience in the dark about key pieces of the plan, which is a very common strategy. Like, it's not that unique to Leverage, it's just very well utilized here. By keeping the audience in the dark about parts of the plan, so we're only seeing the things that are going wrong a lot of the time, it turns each heist into a little mini mystery where you're going, okay, what are they actually up to? What pieces are we missing here that recontextualize everything so we can see how it all actually comes together and what they're actually trying to pull off? which is usually revealed to us on like flashbacks at the end.
Yeah, that was one of the things I really liked about the two horse job is there were things that went wrong, like not only unexpectedly there, but it was such a unique premise for a heist. I think out of all the things they do, that might be what they're best at is just picking the premises of like so far nothing I've seen. Not only is nothing I've seen the same as anything else, but nothing I've seen is in the same ballpark. There's no there's no different shades of what if we stole something from a bank or what if we tricked this person over here into this thing? Like, I mean, God, the ones I've seen so far are like tricking a guy into incriminating himself, going into a bank robbery, getting the people forced
The
in.
robbery not intended, by the way. They just happened
Yeah,
to get caught in a bank robbery in the middle of a con on this judge.
yeah, it like get a judge to not even properly out himself, but just make him look like a crazy piece of shit by baiting him into not acting like, but actually being a crazy piece of shit, conning $12 million out of a guy who runs insurance scams by winning the last, spoilers, by the way. I am summarizing. There's so much more to all these things that I'm saying, but like running a job on a guy by tricking him into just really, really massively overpaying for a horse that's not even theirs to sell. Like, and breaking into to rob a mafia boss on the day of his daughter's wedding. Like, and the funny thing is, it's so tangential that it's a mafia boss's daughter's wedding too. Because the motivation is actually just that like Sophie is friends with one of the victims. And she's just like, yeah, I'm gonna help my friend. And there's one point where they're all like, this is too crazy. We gotta get out of here. We could all die. And Sophie's like, no, I'm not abandoning my friend after I said I would help her. And everyone's like, well, shit, we're not gonna leave you, so
I guess we're doing this.
in for a penny, in for a pound.
Which is often how these things start, is one person makes a heist their pet project, and suddenly all of them are like, ugh.
Oh man, at the two horse job, Elliot goes even farther on that than anyone else has. He's just like, this is a bad idea. We're not prepared for this. Fine, fuck you then. I'll do it myself. Ah, shit. Everybody follow him. Like, after him. Don't let him do it by himself.
Someone will die. But yeah, they're very good at keeping, it's like the heist format fresh and entertaining. It is like you said, like it's very heist stories, they usually come in like a handful of flavors. It's either steal the like painting thing, it's steal the weapon, or it's steal the high-tech MacGuffin, you know? There's a couple of things, but it's all basically that. These guys leverage it. Very rarely is just straightforward that. It's steal thing, make it look like other thing, or get information from this to place to this other place, or whatever. Get guy to buy horse you don't own.
Yeah, oh man, I love that.
So
I think it's also a great way to play off the fact that the base premise of the show for what their goals as a group are, kind of opens you up to having a wealth of options because don't get me wrong, you still have to pour tons of creativity into setting up these premises. But also there's a lot you can open up for yourself just with research. Because despite the wacky, intense, look at these amazing people doing amazing things nature of what is happening, a lot of the rich billionaire slash moguls slash criminal empire activities they're going against are literally just
going on right now.
They're literally just things that happen in real life, ways, legal loopholes or ways of abusing the system that rich people use to get richer through hurting other people all the time right now.
Yeah, it's very hard to combat through legal means, and these guys are like, well, we're already criminals, so even by the time you get to season 3, right, the writers have clearly got, okay, this like serialized contained every episode as its own story kind of thing might be getting a bit dull, so they changed it up for season 3. So it's still like that, but every heist through a chunk of season 3, it's not the whole season, but through a lot of it, every separate heist is also a piece of the puzzle in running a longer con against taking down a bigger overarching threat. And they
Yes,
changed it up that way.
I like that. A serialized a serialized not dartboard, but a serialized corkboard heist type story. I would call it. Stated goal. Here's the guy all the way at the top of the corkboard. And then here's the entire web of people underneath and everything that has to be done and gotten through before he is even touchable, I imagine.
Yeah, pretty much. It was very well timed to do it where they did it, because it's at that point where you're starting to go, okay, maybe this is getting a bit formulaic, and then they change it up on you. And then for seasons 4 and 5, they do something different again. They're really, really good at changing things up and keeping things fresh and interesting and playing around with the heist premise of their show and the format of their show without ever betraying the identity of it.
That's good. Going on for more than a couple seasons is often dangerous for stories like this. I'm glad they pulled it off that way.
Yeah, I mean, part of that again as well is that with every new season, you also get more and more layers into the psychology and histories of the characters and their issues, why they are the way they are and where they're going and things like that as well. So weaving that in so well instead of just making it just about the heist also helps a lot because surprise, as we've said a million times, it doesn't matter how good your plot is if no one gives a shit about your characters.
Gotta care about the characters.
And it's really, really hard not to care about these characters.
The characters are not the entire story, but no matter what, no matter how hard you try to deny it, they are always the core of the character. And if you're making
The
some
core
sort
of the character, yeah, I bet.
sorry, the characters are the core of the story. And even when you look at it as, well, this story doesn't, what if this kind of story doesn't quite necessarily have any characters? No, something in it's a character. Even if you haven't made it involve people, something is being characterized, or you've just made a boring world nobody's going to care about. One of the two. There is no story without character.
But yeah, honestly, I think we can probably leave that there. Like, leverage is a weird one because I feel like we could talk about it for a while just in casual conversation, but for the purposes of the podcast, there's not much more to say about it. It's very well done, but it is not complex in what it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes simple is good. A lot of the time, simple is good because a simple thing executed well is always going to be better than a complicated thing executed poorly. But like that sentence. But for the purposes of like analysis and breaking it down without like going into depth of individual characters and things like that, which isn't really what we want to do with this episode, there's not much else to say.
Yeah. Good show, really smart, likable characters, stands out from all the similar premises and ideas in just the right way. And who doesn't like a Robin Hood story?
Yeah. So yeah, on that note, guys, if you're listening to this over on YouTube or Spotify or wherever else it's shown up at this point, you can also find these episodes on my website, radfordwrites.com. I also post stories there, including the ones I write for this podcast. You can find my other podcast, Fixation, there. You can find blogs and articles, things like that. And you can buy my books there as well, including Marble, my most recent novel, which by the time you can get this episode will definitely be out, available, and readable.
Whoa.
So yeah, and of course you can find John streaming on Twitch and posting VODs to YouTube as Sephear, Sephear. you should go give his content in one or both of those places a watch because he's entertaining in the places other than here too.
Yeah, I've actually got VODs and videos and streams going up now. I'm finally properly regularly doing all the things. And I have no free time anymore.
Imagine having free time.
I can't. Not
Yeah.
anymore.
No, it's just gone.
There was
Alright,
never
well,
enough of it to begin with, and then I scribbled the
honestly.
last bit of it away.
Oh man, I feel that. I look at the schedule, I'm like, I write my own schedule. Why do I do this to myself?
Yeah, no, literally, like, man, I sure am busy.
Someone do
I
a
did
heist and
this.
steal me more time for my day.
Please.